I finally get to come and discuss my favorite urban fiction series. I'm so excited, so let's just get right into it. Hola, mi gente. MsMalcolmHughes here. Welcome, welcome back. Like I said, today we are discussing my favorite urban fiction series. I will even throw in a couple of standalones at the end for good measure. So the first series I want to discuss, and these are in no particular order, is The Art of Hood Love by Antoinette Sherell. If you've been watching the channel recently, you know I absolutely loved that series. And the reason for that is it was healthy urban fiction. It still had all of the aspects that we love, like gangsters and folks trying to figure it out. But they were working on healing and they wanted to come from a healthy place. And even though it was traumatic from chapter 1, page 1, we also knew early on that they wanted different and were trying to achieve different. And so we have our two main characters, which are actually two cousins, and we follow them on their journey of escaping a very dangerous housing situation that they're in to living on their own, trying to figure out how to survive, and then meeting these young cats who help them along the journey. And we're watching them all bond. And even as we're going through this, we are getting family members that we didn't know they had. And then they're coming in and they're getting to join our characters on healing. But that's not without like trauma and chaos and dramatic events. But at every turn, we know that the goal is betterment than where they are. And I love this series. I love that we had these Haitian characters, and I love that the patois was blended in so seamlessly. I love that even though it was like traumatic, there were heavy traumatic events, we also got to see them heal in real time and try to figure out what that meant. I love that we had a diverse group of characters, right? They had different careers, different goals, different aspirations. And as y'all know, my favorite book in that series is actually, it's like an intermission type of book, but I consider it a part of that core text that you have to read. And that was Lessons from a Hidden Treasure. And that's where we get to learn more about Player P and Treasure. So definitely one I highly recommend checking out. I love like a lot of new fiction artists and writers. You will see some of the old school goats on this list, but I'm like pleasantly pleased with where urban fiction has come from when I was younger to like where it is today. I think it's beautiful. There's so much more diversity, so many more options. It's just so good to see. And that's why I wanted to share this list. Next up, we have one that the original book started over 20 years ago, but the series that's here and now is so different. The writer has grown so much since that time. And I'm talking about the Ethics series. And the first book in that series, which was its own standalone, was Moth to a Flame, way back in the day. But I do think it's worthwhile reading that. But Ethic, we first get introduced to Ezra, or Ethic, as most people know him, in the Moth to the Flame book. And he is, goodness gracious, just this gorgeous man who really wants a family. Like, and he has kids and he's been forced to have like just trauma, right? It's like the women that he loves always die. And he's left behind trying to figure out how to be a single father, but he wants love real, real bad. And it's like it evades him. So we get to watch him figure that out. And even when he finds it, it's rooted in just like devastation. And so we get to see that. But along with that, we get to learn about his life in the game. And he is like the head honcho distributor. You don't really see him, okay, but he's well known and his reputation definitely precedes him. But with him, what I loved about the series is that we get so many other characters. We get Morgan, again, someone who's introduced from Moth to a Flame. We get Messiah, we get Amik, we get Issa, we get so many other characters that have their own extended storylines that just make this so robust. It's so good. Ethic is like, when you're healed, you want an ethic. But with that, before you're healed, you want the folks that are in this next series that is a spinoff of Ethic, and that is the Butterfly series. Like I said, Morgan is one of the main characters. Morgan is actually Ezra's like brought in adopted daughter, if you could say. I won't give too many details about how they're connected, read it. But we get Morgan's series and we get all her friends, right? And man, oh man, these are the characters with my heart. Even when I was reading Ethic, these are the characters I was most invested in. So for me, this is where we get, you talking about chaos, unhinged, insanity. We get that in the Butterfly series, but we also get the men trying to figure out what it means. Morgan is healing too. Hers just takes a little longer, but we get to see these men grapple with what does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to be loyal? What does it mean to really hold you and everyone around you down in a way that's healthy and beneficial to them? How can they learn to love in a way that doesn't harm? Man, listen, Butterfly for me is like chef's kiss as far as series. Like I said, in no particular order, but for me, Butterfly is like the standard. Also, I put The Art of Hood Love up there with Butterfly. So if you wanted to rank them. Next up, we have the Soul Ties series. And Soul Ties is one that I read recently. I started reading it this year. So we start off with Soul Ties, and we get introduced to these three brothers. This story is about one brother and his journey to healthy, healing love. I guess we see a trend here. Everyone's trying to heal. But in this one, we also have Haitian characters, so we get the patois again. We get more history here of how they got from Haiti to America and what their journey has meant. And we have this character who is in this marriage and he's trying to do the right thing. That's the twist here. He's trying to do the right thing, but his wife is pregnant and she is like, I cannot give you what you need right now. I know you have these desires and I want you to have that. I want you to be happy and fulfilled. So go do that. And he denies it forever. He's like, no, I don't want anyone else but you. But truthfully, their marriage was struggling before that. So eventually he gives in, and man, oh man, when he does, you know how you think you've been in love until you fall in love and then you realize that like, I had no idea what being in love was about. That's what we get here. So we get this intense story of him and the woman trying to figure out what all of this means, because she had never been in love like that either. But obviously he's in a situation, she was in a situation that ended. I'll let y'all read it to figure it out. But it was beautiful. It was a beautiful story. I really, really enjoyed it. And because of that, Saint is one of the other brothers and he got his own series. Saint has 2 books. That first Saint book, chef's freaking kiss. Like, that one was so good because Saint is the more toxic brother, okay? Saint is partial owner of this sex club, and Saint is outside. He's the outside brother, okay, who gets all the women, does what he wants, has a level head, business-minded, but outside. And he meets Naoki and everything changes for him, but not right away because Saint doesn't do love and neither does Naoki. Okay, so what do we do with this? So good. The next series I want to talk about, toxic on toxic on toxic, and that is the On Us series by Nina. And these brothers, the Porter brothers, if you've been in these booktube streets, you've heard about them. We get these 5 brothers who have been trained from a young age as far as to take over the family business, which again is las drogas, okay? So, but their father dies early. And so the eldest brother is then forced to look out for the younger brothers. And they're all kids trying to raise each other. So the chaos that ensues. They have an aunt. I say that for a reason. Read the series, you'll figure out why. Who is toxic, who's trying to guide them, but she's chaotic and she's not doing a good job. So they're basically just out here wild. But one thing that doesn't ever get messed up is the money. And so like the eldest brother, we get to see him and all of his other brothers on this journey, again, of trying to be more than what they've been taught to be. And it is toxic, traumatic, but it's beautiful. And that's one thing I'm realizing with this series. Like I said, toxic on toxic on toxic, but it is coming along beautifully. I recently finished the third book. I'll be going to a book event soon to get some of the other books. So yeah, listen, I'm gonna read the archives. I'm gonna read all of them. So it's really good. You do become invested. Nina matures as a writer as the story progresses. So the story gets better. She gets better. Definitely worth the read. Next, we have an oldie but goodie, classic, if you will. That is Midnight by Sister Souljah. And the Midnight series started off with the coldest winter ever. It's a spinoff from the character that everyone loved, Midnight. The man that Winter was in love with but could not bag because she wasn't spiritually aligned and enlightened, right? Intellectually, on no level were they aligned. But she wanted him, desired him. And in this series, we get to learn more about him. The man that all of us had crushes on, our first book boyfriend, if you will. And we got to learn so much more about him, his history, his family, the country that they come from in Africa, the history with his father, why he was alone here with his mother and the little sister, and the story they're in, and how he's surviving. And we get to see that in real time. So many questions we had in the coldest winter ever, we get to see them answered and realized here. Not always perfectly. I still think she changed the story, but go watch my old reviews for that and why I'm saying that. But the first two books, there are 3 books in the series. The first 2 books, so good. The third book was, it was cool, but definitely worthwhile. Read The Coldest Winter Ever and then read Midnight. Once you get introduced to Midnight, you're probably going to want to know more. And we have a series here to give you all the answers, at least most of them. Next up, we have the Anywhere the Wind Blows series by Mr. Lynn Harris. Lynn Harris, for me, has such a special place in my heart because I remember being young, too young to be reading these books, but getting introduced to these characters, the first characters that I ever read in books that were bisexual, and trying to figure out what that meant and having to navigate that and explore those feelings in real time. And I remember being blown away because the bisexual character is a male, and these were coming out in the 90s, controversial, but so captivating. And it shouldn't have been controversial. He was just giving another perspective, and gosh, brilliant. I loved them so much. Like I say, Basil Henderson was one of those people. As an adult, I realized he was quite toxic, but at the time, captivating, okay? And so we get to watch him and other characters navigate romantic relationships and the mess of it, and professional lives and maturing, and what does all that mean, but real topics, the AIDS epidemic and how that impacted everything. So good. Topics that needed to be discussed then and still need to be discussed now. So I highly, highly recommend. Before I get out of here, those are my series. I did say that I wanted to recommend some standalone books. So those are 1, Demon's Dream. Read that recently as well. Top of this year, and my goodness, so good. 750 plus pages, but so good. We have Damien, because I don't like to call him Demon. We have Damien who wants love, but doesn't know how. Doesn't know that he's capable. And he gets put in this situation where someone is given to him for X amount of time. They end up falling in love in a way that neither of them could have predicted. But there are so many other characters as well, like Smoke, okay, or Cartier, if you will. Loved him down. Loved that storyline. This one was just so good. My only qualm was that at the end, I felt like it got rushed a little bit. Like, it was almost 800 pages and could have been longer. Like, I wanted more. It's so good. Like, just the situations that they go through. Some are like unique. It's a spin on it, a different perspective. I don't think that we get all the time. Instead of dealing with drogas, they are actually dealing with arms. So listen, worth the read. Different perspective, still toxic and a little chaotic, can be dark, but again, people trying to heal, and I love that. The next one is an oldie but goodie. I have reviewed it on the channel. That is Flyy Girl by Mr. Omar Tyree. Listen, you should have read it already, okay? Another book that I read when I was too young, but so good. We get the story of Tracy trying to come of age in Philly, and we got to know real time the issues going on with the Black community at that time. She comes from a middle-class family, so that was another interesting take. So good. We got to know about her and Victor, and she ended up taking a completely different route. A little bit more traditional as far as school and stuff than we get in some of these urban fiction ones. So definitely check it out. So good. Still with the hood knowledge and the situations, but we got to see a different path being chosen. So worth it. And last but not least, I talked about it earlier. We have The Coldest Winter Ever by Sister Souljah, where we all get introduced to Miss Winter Santiago. And that story is actually still ongoing. I will be reviewing the third book that will be coming out October 8th soon in my September wrap up. So look out for that. But again, so good. This is the story that we were all reading when we were too young. This is the one. And so this one, we get Winter Santiago in the streets of New York, Brooklyn, if you will. And her father, Ricky Santiago, I still want his story. He's been now interspersed, but I want his story real bad. Because I always like to know how it started. What was the grind? How did you get in that position? But we see Winter's world turn upside down when her father is taken into custody. And young Winter, who is grown in her mind but not grown in reality, is forced to deal with the downfall in reality of what happens when you no longer have the king protecting the kingdom. And so we get to see Winter make choices, good and bad. Her family make choices, good and bad, and how everything happens and the downfall that ensues because of it. This is a bona fide classic, okay? Listen, you've probably read The Coldest Winter Ever. If you haven't, I'm going to argue that you may have been under a rock or quite sheltered because it was everywhere. This is the one that in so many of the recent urban fictions, you can see that foundation, but it has evolved and grown and the genre has gone in its own direction. But this was one of the books that was foundational in the genre that we know and love today. These are the books in the series that I wanted to discuss. Which ones do y'all love? Which ones have y'all read that I didn't discuss that you're like, no, this is amazing and you need to read it right now? So there are some other books that I think fall under romance that are not necessarily urban fiction. They have been categorized that way, but I would put them under romance. So I haven't included them here, but they will be coming soon in their own video soon to the channel. So look out for that. Also look out for my September wrap along with my October read. So videos to come. More things to the channel. As always, let me know what y'all are reading below. Let me know what y'all want to see me review. Just let me know all of the bookish information that you can share. That's it for me. Until next time, I am MsMalcolmHughes, one who believes that books are sometimes better than people. Please remember to give time, to be kind to each other, and to have the very best day of your life on purpose. Peace. Odabo. Adios. Ciao.